Today, I'm going to provide you with my top tips for eating healthy and organic on a budget. Yes, it can be done. Shop at your local farmer's market or, depending on where you live, your local farm. I currently live in the city of Toronto, so we love to check out our farmers markets throughout the city on a weekly basis. In fact, it is something that we always look forward to, and it's a highlight of our week. The food that you buy at a farmer's market is the freshest, most nutrient-dense food that your money can buy. And the reason for this is because you are totally cutting out the middleman of buying it at a grocery store where they've marked up the food, and you're buying direct from the farmer. I find that I can get the best bang for my buck at the farmer's market. Plus, I am supporting local organic farming. It's a win-win for both the health of your family and the health of our planet. And the foods that farmers are going to be selling to you are always going to be in-season foods. And that brings me to my next point, which is eat seasonally. When you buy foods that are in season, they are going to be less expensive than their counterparts. If you were to buy a half pint of raspberries from the grocery store in the dead of winter, not only is it going to be lacking in taste and nutrition, but it's also going to cost you a small fortune. If you'd like to know what's in season in your area, often you can find an availability guide online. For those of you living in Ontario, I'm going to add ours to the caption below. But if you're interested in having a variety of fruits and vegetables all year long, then I recommend buying frozen produce. I like to make smoothies and soups throughout the winter months. So in my freezer, you will find that I am well stocked with things like frozen kale and cauliflower, a variety of berries. Frozen produce is equally as nutritious as fresh, and it is much better than buying canned. If you were to choose, I would say always go frozen over canned if possible. My next tip is to grow your own food. Now, if you're new to this, start small. You can just get a little basil plant or a little herb garden in your windowsill. The question is, herb or herb? Herbs are incredibly nutritious and flavorful, and a little goes a long way. So even if you aren't going to grow them yourself, if you were to buy them at your local farmer's market, they're really quite inexpensive and just such an amazing addition to bring the wow factor to your meals. Growing your own food is such a rewarding experience. If you have children, it is a fantastic idea to get them involved in the gardening. This will teach them where their food comes from instead of thinking that it just magically appears on the grocery store shelves. They'll have an understanding of how it grows from seed to plant. My next tip is to create a weekly meal plan. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but jotting down a few ideas for dinners for the week ahead and planning on having rollover meals. A rollover meal is when you're intentional about having leftovers that you can then repurpose later on into another meal and just like create a new flavor profile. Maybe it doesn't have to be a new flavor profile, but that's what I like to do. Planning your meals in advance means that you're less likely to waste food and therefore getting more value out of the food that you bought, as well as you're less likely to get takeout at the end of a busy day. My next tip is to eat smaller amounts of meat, but just making sure that it is always organic, grass-fed, pastured quality meat. So you're eating smaller quantities of a better quality. And look for inexpensive cuts. For example, ground beef, beef stew is a great one. These are things that we have on a regular basis. The most economical way to buy a chicken is to get the whole chicken as often as possible. In our home, what we'll do is we'll cook the chicken, we'll eat all the parts of the chicken, and then we'll use the bones to make bone broth. We always go to an organic grass-fed butcher in the city of Toronto, and if there is a sale going on, then we will stock up and freeze it. Buy whole foods instead of processed foods. Don't be fooled by health washing. If you are buying a food in a box or in a can that has gone through any processing, it is definitely not going to be as nutritious for you as getting that fresh whole food as a result of additives or sodium or added sugar, things of that nature. Instead, opt for whole foods that will have everything intact, including things like the fiber, and that will help you to feel fuller longer. Whereas if you're getting a processed food, oftentimes you're just not going to get the same value for your dollar. Cook at home instead of buying takeout. There is nothing better for your pocketbook than cooking at home on a regular basis. It makes a huge difference. I know it can be really tempting at the end of a busy day to just go grab takeout on your way home from work, but I highly recommend that you stick to your meal plan that we discussed earlier in the video and that you have those rollover meals in your fridge so you can go home and heat something up quickly. Make your own staple food items. And I'm not talking about doing this on a weekly basis. Maybe you do it once a month, once every couple of weeks. but there are certain things for us in our family that we make every week. Every week we make nut milks. They're so much better in your pocketbook to make nut milks homemade and fresh and way more delicious. I have a video on my YouTube channel how to make homemade cashew milk, and I'll link it below. I also like to make bone broth on a regular basis, vegetable broth, nut butters, hummus, guacamole. These are staples in everyone's household that I highly recommend that you make yourself. Make use of vegetable scraps. For example, a lot of people don't know that beet greens are extremely nutritious and they're actually really tasty. You can easily saute beet greens in a little olive oil with a little bit of lemon and a dash of sea salt. You can also collect your vegetable scraps in a silicone bag in your freezer, and then you can use them to make a vegetable broth. Only buy organic sometimes. You don't always have to buy organic. You can check out the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list along with the Clean 15. That way you can prioritize which foods you're gonna buy organic and which foods are gonna be lower on that priority list. I'll include the Environmental Working Group's list in my blog post in the caption below. Comment below and let me know what your favorite tips were from this video. I would love to hear. And please do subscribe to my channel if you're interested in more nutrition and healthy lifestyle tips.